Hey guys, Drutter here, December the 2nd today. This video will touch on a few of the topics that I often talk about. One of them is the silver price. So here we are at low 19s. It touched 1910 recently. It's now 1927. Looks like it's been a pretty much straight line down since Halloween. That was when we were at 23 bucks. And we can go out to a daily chart. Really the same story. This is the escalation of Syria and all that crap that was going to turn into a war and ended up not turning into a war, luckily. John Kerry and Obama were foiled in their attempts to turn this into a war. At least that's what it looked like they were trying to do. And we haven't regained that $25 level since. On the daily chart it's pretty much straight down, and you can look at the weekly chart, pretty much straight down since that. 50 ups and downs, of course, but the story is pretty clear. Once we hit that top at 50, or maybe it was this top at 45, when QE3 Infinity was announced, that silver stopped behaving correctly and started moving downward with every dollar they printed. So $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion worth of QE3, that's not all money printing, that's just QE3 money printing, has occurred since this $45 point here. But we have moved nowhere but down ever since that point. So I'm not going to talk too much about technical analysis. Yes, we are approaching that low of $18 that we hit a few months ago. And yeah, it certainly could test that 18 level, and yeah, it certainly can go below. This chart doesn't respond to supply and demand. This chart isn't measuring physical silver. This chart doesn't have any relation to reality at all as far as I'm concerned. This chart is now doing, since about this $50 or $45 region, just what it's told to do. So it's not really useful for predicting the future, as some charts often are. If you know your technical analysis and you understand markets, we can't use this chart to determine the future anymore. You notice that Endless Mountain, a very good chartist, is not doing a lot of videos these days. I wonder why that is. In my opinion, the chart does not follow technical analysis because it is almost entirely manipulated. It's doing what it's supposed to do, and that's make the dollar look good, even though it's not. So let's quickly move right along to silver demand, which is an entirely different story from this chart. The US did update their sales page today for Silver Eagles. It's only showing 239,000 for December. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't think they reported their full numbers for November. We were expecting at least 4 million, and other measures of demand are not showing that demand is slowing. So I think that the US Mint is just hiding a few numbers, and they're going to put it over onto January. As they have done in many years in the past. I've noticed December's and January's are often really weird with their numbers. Maybe there's a logical explanation for that. I don't give them too much the benefit of the doubt, this company, but we can now have this 41.7 million figure in mind as we move over to our graph. Right here showing 92% of the year complete, and here's our current bar, fair bit above that all-time record set back in 2011 of 39.8 million ounces. I'm using a new Bitcoin chart. This is at bitcoinwisdom.com, and this is just their main page. It's all they do is a really good chart. It has 1 week intervals, 3 day, 1 day, 12 hour, 6 hour, 4 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 15, 5, 3, and 1. And a whole bunch of other settings I haven't even played around with. And then on the right you can see it's going through each trade as it comes in and cancels out a buy and a sell at the same time, and shows you the current updated price there in the middle. 1068 right now. It did hit 1242 earlier. That was, I think, Friday or sometime just before the weekend. I'll show you a clip I took of that. Bitcoin just hit $1,242, and gold is at $1,242. Kind of interesting how when Bitcoin hit 1242, which was exactly the price of gold at that time, it was not able to get above, and basically the gold price rejected Bitcoin. And I think it actually is true. My friend SG, actually, he's the one that linked me to this Bitcoin chart in the first place, but we were watching it together as it happened, and he said, you know, I think people sold at that exact point, sort of a psychological sell point, because they wanted to say, I bought Bitcoin at, you know, whatever, $3, and I sold it for an ounce of gold. So I think a lot of people There's a lot of crossover between Bitcoin and the precious metals communities, and I think there's a lot of sellers at that point just said, you know, I'm going to cash this out for an ounce of gold, even though it's just sort of a psychological thing. I think that triggered a bit of a sell, and then the price wasn't able to get back above that 1242, which triggered a sell-off, and that's what happens to Bitcoin all the time. Let's zoom out a little bit. There, that's the 12-hourly chart, so each of those bars is half a day, and as you can see, Bitcoin has had a few of these red bar sections here. A little bit to the left, you can see that one was at 200 and something bucks. It came back down below 200 for a while, then consolidated. When it broke out above that, it went up to 390 or so. Then that came down to 300. Then it recaptured its trading channel upward, made that high at 90, collapsed back down to 450. Then it recaptured that 900 level again, shot up to 1242. Now it pulled back to 840, and it's back up around 1100 again. And what's going to happen with this Bitcoin chart? The chart itself is telling us that it's going to continue upward. A lot of people have said that 200 was the top. Well, a lot of people said $1 was the top. Then a lot of people said it could never get above the price of silver. It didn't even stop there. Then people said it could never get above this 390 or whatever it was here, saying that was the end and it was going to come back down. And yeah, it does take a really good pullback each time it comes down, but it never stops. This might have been the top, 1242. Maybe that's the all-time high for Bitcoin. We don't know. But if it's going to continue the pattern that it has been showing us so far, it's just going to spend maybe 2 or 3 days here, and then it's going to resume its push upward, probably to 1500, 2000 and beyond. I keep on hearing, I'm sure you do too, Bitcoin's a bubble, Bitcoin's a bubble, Bitcoins are just tulips, people are buying tulip bulbs here. No, people aren't buying tulip bulbs here. It's a currency. It's a currency, and it's totally different than tulip bulbs. It's not a commodity. People are comparing this to something like gold. It's not gold. It doesn't compare with gold. Gold is money and a commodity and physical. Bitcoin is none of those things. Bitcoin is currency, not a commodity, and not physical. It's also not a stock. People are saying, any stock I've seen that's had a chart like this crashed immediately thereafter. But this isn't a stock. This is a currency. You have to look at currency charts. Look at the US dollar when it first started out. It was worth nothing. And then when it came into existence, it was worth something. And then it increased in market cap all the way up to where it is now, trillions of dollars of market cap. Bitcoin has $12 billion of market cap. Almost nothing compared to any other currency. So if Bitcoin is going to be used as a currency, and looking around the world, we see that it's being accepted more and more places and taking on a role as currency. If it does become a currency, it's going to need to be at an astronomically higher price than it is right now. So really what's happening here is not that Bitcoin is going up. Really what's happening is Bitcoin as a currency is revaluing. You're looking at a revaluation. Zoom out a little bit further here. There we go. That's what I mean by a revaluation. But to be clear, can Bitcoin go back to zero? No, it can't. It can't go back to zero, but it can go back down very, very low. Of course it can. If people lose interest in it, and if it's not valid as a currency, if it can't compete, or perhaps if regulation imposed by the US and other holders of big currencies like the US dollar decide to go after it and do whatever they can to stop it, then perhaps, yeah, something can be done about it. But until then, Bitcoin is taking on a role of a new currency, and it's going to need to have a market cap in the many multiple hundreds of billions or possibly trillions to compete with other currencies. If it's going to be used, and it does look like it's going to be used, possibly all over the world, then we haven't seen the end of it. But there's no guarantee of that.
I'm okay. They just took this guy out of our group. It's really rough. It's okay right now, right? I'll call you. I know. Shield. No! Whoa! Hey! 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 I better get out the book. They're just like jumping into the circle and pulling people out. It's like a shield in the face. And it's really rough. They're grabbing people by the neck and just like pulling them away by the throat. It's absolutely disgusting. Peaceful protest. Anybody have a pen?
No.
Whoa, 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 hey! Get back! Get back! Let's go!
Okay, okay, okay. Okay! Okay!
For a few days in the summer of 2010, there was an event called the G20 Summit in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The event was attended by a lot of powerful and evil elitists from around the planet, plotting against the citizens of their countries, and making major policy changes without any consultation from the public whatsoever. In fact, the entire thing was 100% secret. Before the event took place, though, a budget of $1 billion was set aside for security for the event, which caused a lot of anger amongst Canadians, and I think it was justifiable, and that caused a lot of protests to happen at the G20, which supposedly justified the $1 billion being spent in the first place. I did a couple of videos at the time, and I will link them below, but the G20 was a line in the sand for me, and that really activated me, and I haven't really looked back since that point. It was just such an over-the-top display of tyranny in my own country that I couldn't back down from that point on, and I have been at it ever since, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to play a short clip. I don't actually know who the guy is, but what he says here is quite accurate.
Let's go down the list. Laws were changed without public input. The public was misinformed about broadened police powers. Unconstitutional searches occurred across the city. Excessive force was used to disperse peaceful protesters. More than 1,000 people were arrested, held in an overcrowded detention center, and not allowed to call their family or a lawyer. More than 900 of them had not done anything wrong and were subsequently released without charge. Never have we witnessed before in this province such an outrageous and aggressive attack on fundamental freedoms and on basic and clear charter rights. We reverted to barbarism.
Absolutely we did. In fact, tyranny is the better word. And now, 3.5 years later, we're learning that the list of transgressions doesn't stop there. When Harper emerged from the G20, he told Canadians, "I know you don't like it, but we're going to have to give up our national sovereignty."
Canadians, there isn't really a Canadian economy anymore unless we work with our other economic partners around the world and work with them closely and intimately. That is essential. I know some people don't like it. It's a loss of national sovereignty, but it is a simple reality. It is a simple reality.
We're finding out now, though, that he had already done so on our behalf before the G20 took place. A few days ago it was Black Friday, a new holiday here in Canada, thanks to the Americans exporting it to us. Thank you very much. About 30 pages into the paper, most of those 30 pages Black Friday advertisements, was this tiny article, and I'm going to read it to you now. This article is shown under the Fair Use Clause of copyright law. Ottawa. The head of the country's super-secret electronic spy agency reiterated Thursday that CSEC is not allowed to target Canadians or anyone in Canada. CSEC is Canada's NSA. CSEC chief John Forster added that the agency is not allowed to ask its allies, including the NSA, to eavesdrop on Canadians or anyone in Canada either. But Forster, whose rare public appearance came during a House of Commons committee meeting, did not say what would happen if the NSA or another foreign spy agency approached CSEC with such a request. So he's saying that he's not allowed to cooperate with the NSA to eavesdrop on Canadians, but he can't say what would happen if the NSA asked him to do so? The answer, buddy, is you would tell him to fuck off. That could have significant importance after a report that the Harper government let the NSA eavesdrop on Canadian soil during the 2010 G20 summit in Toronto, the latest in a string of potentially explosive revelations about Canada's spy activity. Defense Minister Rob Nicholson also refused to comment, thank you for defending Canada, Defense Minister, on the allegations following his own committee appearance, citing national security before repeating Forster's assertions that CSEC cannot target Canadians. The report that Canada approved U.S. spy operations on Canadian soil during the G20 summit is based on documents supplied by Edward Snowden, the former NSA contractor who has exposed blah blah blah. You know, why wasn't that in the title? Why does it not say, "Wow, latest Edward Snowden revelation involves Canada. We were spied upon. An act of war by the USA. Our own people invited the USA in to spy on us." No, it doesn't start that way. You have to read the entire thing, and you have to flip 30 pages into the newspaper to find this top story material. It ends with, Post-Media News has not seen the documents, but the CBC reports that NSA spying was closely coordinated with the Canadian partner, an apparent reference to CSEC. The bottom line here is that the latest revelation from Snowden is that Harper and CSEC, Canada's NSA, invited the NSA into Canada to spy on Canadians, something that is clearly illegal and an act of war. And what's going to happen about this? Absolutely nothing, because no one's even going to find out about it. And anyone who does find out about it isn't able to figure out what it means because they're not smart enough. And anyone who is smart enough is going to make a YouTube video about it that'll be seen by 700 people and then forgotten. So let's just forget it all and move right along. And just a quick update on the U.S. national debt. It's $7.2 billion. Sorry. 7.2 trillion. 17.2 trillion. And just a couple more things to mention before I wrap up the video. The first one is from a few videos ago. I had an idea. I wanted to get some silver out to a few hip-hop artists, revolutionary hip-hop artists that are fighting for liberty. And I wanted to get them each at least an ounce of silver. And I don't have any money of myself to give right now, so what I wanted was for you guys to buy an ounce of silver for these guys. And I showed you some of their music, I showed you some of their videos, and I gave you some links to their channels and to their Facebook pages and so forth. And the reviews that I got back was excellent. I had a lot of people tell me, thank you so much. I found music that I felt like I'd been looking for my entire life. And that's how I felt when I heard the music as well. I never thought that I would be able to get into hip-hop music, and now I find myself not only into the music and the absolutely amazing message these guys are putting out, but also the culture of hip-hop, the community of hip-hop, which I think can be at times a misunderstood community, and at least in the case of these guys, is a community that's fighting for change and fighting for positive change, and is not all about violence and consumerism and hatred of women and so forth. It's absolutely not about that for these guys. And the message they put out is so powerful, and it's so similar and so aligned with my own message. I could not help but ally myself with them, and I could not help but promote their music. And the idea was an absolute success. A Sativa, a Maple, and an Indica were purchased for these guys. The first two were purchased by customers who just said, pass this on to one of your rapper friends and get that out to them. And another one was actually donated by the maker of the Silver Sativa and Silver Indica, which is libertyleaf.com. So thank you very much to those two viewers and to libertyleaf.com for stepping up and putting forth an ounce of silver toward positive change in the hip-hop community. So I'm very pleased to announce that there is 1 ounce of silver for DISL Automatic, for Aspirit, and for FILFY, and I'm going to put their links down below as well, so you can check out their music if you haven't already. I'll put a link to the original video where I talked about this idea, and I'm going to be getting this silver out to those guys in the next couple of days. So thank you very much to anyone who participated, and perhaps we'll do something like this again in the future if an opportunity arises. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the Google Plus thing. You'll notice there is no comment section. You'll notice a lot of stuff is missing that used to be around on my channel, and that's going to continue. I'm sorry to say it is going to continue. I'm not stepping down. I'm not going to be taking Google Plus, and if I can't find a way to have a comment section or have some kind of interaction, this is not going to go on, and I will just stop. So I am looking into other alternatives, and I do welcome your input. Private message is now the only way to communicate with me. I can't communicate with you because I don't know you're there. If you want me to know you're there, you have to send me a private message. Otherwise, how do I know you're there? How do I know you're viewing? How do I know you are one of those views on the view count? I don't. You can't rate, you can't comment, you can't even use the discussion tab on my channel page because I can't read it and I can't respond to it. I can't do anything on YouTube anymore other than view videos and upload videos and send and receive private messages. That's it. So here's a video. Now I wait for private messages. And you'd be surprised at how many private messages I've gotten in the last few weeks saying, good on you, I'm not taking Google Plus either, stay strong, I'm still here, I'm glad you're still there, hopefully we can get through this together. And I've just had so many messages like that from people saying, thank you for not allowing me to comment on your video, thank you for not taking Google Plus. And I've even had a few messages from people saying, I'm an older guy, I don't know how to use Google Plus. I probably would take it if I knew how, but I just don't have the technical know-how to get there. So I'm effectively muzzled as well. So there's a lot of people, for various reasons, whether or not they are just unable to figure it out because it is kind of complicated and stupid, or like myself, they're taking a stand and saying, no, I'm not going to use a third-party social networking website that steals my privacy just so that I can use YouTube, a completely different website. I signed up for YouTube before it was Google. They sold it to Google, and they've been destroying it ever since. And now with this Google Plus thing, that's it. It's done. So unless they're going to go back and give us a comment section, and give us an inbox, and give us comment notifications, again, I can't run a channel with videos on it. I understand that it's different for people who don't have videos, and a lot of people are saying, I don't see what's the big deal. Trust me, it is a big deal. If you have 415 videos, like I do, and there's comments being left on a lot of them all the time on a regular basis, and you have no idea they're there, comments, questions, critique, just a complete waste of time for the people leaving them, and a complete waste of time for me because I don't even know they're there, and if I did know they were there, I couldn't respond to them anyway. So stay strong. I don't know how long we can go like this without any kind of feedback, with you just watching my videos and me just watching your videos and communicating via private message. But another thing I figured out I can do is I can make kind of channel announcements, I guess, or something. I don't know if anyone's able to see them, but if you go to my channel page, you'll see that I left a couple of channel comments recently. If those are useful, I'll keep using it. I don't know if they are or not, but that's really the only tool I seem to have access to on this site anymore, other than the upload button and, of course, private messages. Alright, that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon. Check out the links below. Bye for now. Peace.